أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's continue with the third point, inshallah. This is 20th word, and inshallah we will continue with the third point.
Okay, so let's begin then. Thus, you have seen how valuable these three parts of the verse are from the point of view of wisdom. The three parts of the verse, I think this is referring to from the verse that says, let me check, what verse was that? I think that from the third point, I'll just recap a little bit. So the verse from the third point started off with, and yet, after all this, your hearts hardened and became like rocks, or even harder. For behold, there are rocks from which streams gush forth, and behold, there are some from which, when they are cleft, water issues, and there are some that fall down for awe of God, and God is not unmindful of what you do. That is from Quran, chapter 2, verse number 74. So these are the verse the author is referring to. So continuing on with the paragraph. Thus, you have seen how valuable these three parts of the verse are from the point of view of wisdom. Now see the Quran's subtle manner of exposition and miraculous eloquence. See how it shows through the three famous and observed events in the three parts of the verse, the tips of the above-mentioned extensive and important truths, and through recalling three further events, which are a warning lesson, it offers subtle guidance. It restrains in a way that cannot be resisted. For example, in the second part of the verse, it says, and behold, there are some from which, when they are cleft, water issues. By alluding through this sentence to the rock which split with perfect eagerness under the staff of Moses, peace be upon him, and poured forth 12 streams from 12 sources, it imparts the following meaning. O children of Israel, great rocks become soft and crumble before a single miracle of Moses, peace be upon him. Great rocks become soft and crumble before a single miracle of Moses. They shed tears in floods. The rocks shed tears in floods, pouring forth out of either awe or joy. Pouring forth out of either awe or joy. How is it you are so unfair? You are obstinate in the face of all Moses' miracles, and not weeping. Your eyes are lifeless, and your hearts hard. How is it you are so unfair? You are obstinate in the face of all Moses' miracles, and not weeping. Your eyes are lifeless, and your hearts hard. And in the third part, it says, and behold, there are some that fall down for awe of God. And behold, there are some that fall down for awe of God. Through calling to mind with this part the famous event of the huge mountain crumbling and being scattered out of awe at the manifestation of divine glory, through calling to mind with this part the famous event of the huge mountain crumbling and being scattered out of awe at the manifestation of divine glory, which occurred on Mount Sinai at the supplications of Moses, peace be upon him, and the rocks rolling down all round out, again in awe. It teaches this meaning: O people of Moses, peace be upon him, how is it you do not fear God when the mountains which are composed of rocks are crushed and scattered out of awe of him? How is it you do not fear God when the mountains which are composed of rocks are crushed and scattered out of awe of him? Although you know that Moses climbed Mount Sinai above you in order to receive the covenant, and that on his seeking the vision of God, the mountain crumbled, and you saw it. How is it you are so bold? You do not tremble out of fear of God, and you make your hearts hard and unfeeling. And in the first part, it says, For behold, there are rocks from which streams gush forth. Behold, there are rocks from which streams gush forth. Through recalling with this part, rivers like the blessed Nile and the Tigris and Euphrates, which gush up out of mountains, the Quran makes understood the miraculous fashion rocks receive the creational commands and are subjugated to them. The Quran makes understood related to vigilant hearts. It is certainly not possible that the mountains could be the actual source of such mighty rivers. It is certainly not possible that the mountains could be the actual source of such mighty rivers. For let us suppose the water was cut completely, and the mountains each became a conical reservoir. They would only persist a few months before losing the balance to the swift and abundant flow of those large rivers. For let us suppose the water was cut completely and the mountains each became a conical reservoir. They would only persist a few months before losing the balance to the swift and abundant flow of those large rivers. And the rain, which penetrates only about a meter into the earth, would not be sufficient income for that high expenditure. This means that the springs of these rivers are not something ordinary and natural arising from chance. This means that the springs of these rivers are not something ordinary and natural arising from chance, but that the all-glorious Creator makes them flow forth from an unseen treasury in truly marvelous fashion. Thus, alluding to this mystery and stating this meaning, it is narrated in a hadith. Each of those three rivers is a drop from paradise which continuously issues forth from paradise. Each of those three rivers is a drop from paradise which continuously issues forth from paradise, as a result of which they are sources of abundance. And in another it is said, the source of these three rivers is from paradise. The source of these three rivers is from paradise. The truth of these narrations is this: since physical causes are not capable of producing their abundant flow, Their sources must be in an unseen world. Their sources must be in an unseen world and must arise from a treasury of mercy. The equilibrium between their incomings and outgoings is maintained in this way. Their sources must be in an unseen world and must arise from a treasury of mercy. The equilibrium between their incomings and outgoings is maintained in this way. Thus, through inferring this meaning, the all-wise Quran gives the following instruction. O children of Israel and sons of Adam, with your hardness of heart, unfeelingness, and heedlessness, you disobey and close your eyes to the commands and light of knowledge of the pre-eternal Son, one so glorious that he makes flow forth from the mouths of common, lifeless rocks, mighty rivers like the blessed Nile, which transforms Egypt into a paradise and produces witnesses to his unity for the universe's heart and earth's mind, as eloquent as the force, appearance, and abundant flow of those mighty rivers, and make them flow to the hearts and minds of jinn and man. Okay, that was a mouthful, so let's reread that again. Thus, through inferring this meaning, the all-wise Quran gives the following instruction. O children of Israel and sons of Adam, with your hardness of heart, unfeelingness, and heedlessness, you disobey and close your eyes to the commands and light of knowledge of the pre-eternal Son, one so glorious that he makes flow forth from the mouths of common, lifeless rock, mighty rivers like the blessed Nile, which transforms Egypt into a paradise and produces witnesses to his unity for the universe's heart and earth's mind, as eloquent as the force, appearance, and abundant flow of those mighty rivers, eloquent as the force, appearance, and abundant flow of those mighty rivers, and makes them flow to the hearts and minds of jinn and man. How is it that while some unfeeling, lifeless rocks manifest the miracles of his power in such wondrous fashion, showing the all-glorious Creator as the sunlight shows the sun, showing the all-glorious Creator as the sunlight shows the sun, you are blind before the light of his knowledge and do not see it. How is it that while some unfeeling, lifeless rocks manifest the miracles of his power in such wondrous fashion, showing the all-glorious Creator as the sunlight shows the sun, you are blind before the light of his knowledge and do not see it? There is a footnote at the bottom. The blessed Nile rises in the mountains of the moon, the main stream of the river Tigris, in a cave in the district of Mukus. I don't know how you say that, but okay, Mukus, doesn't matter. In the province of Van and the main branch of the Euphrates, in the foothills of a mountain in the region of Diadin. It is established by science that the origins of mountains are rocks, solidified from liquid matter. That's interesting. One of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him's glorification. Glory be to the one who spread out the earth on solidified liquid. Glory be to the one who spread out the earth on solidified liquid is decisive evidence that the original creation of the earth was as follows. Some liquid matter solidified at the divine command and became rock. With divine leave, the rock became earth. The rock became earth. The word earth, arz, in the glorification means earth, soil. That is to say, the liquid matter was too soft to support anything, and the rock was too hard to be benefited from. Therefore, the all-wise and compassionate one spread the earth over the rock and made it the place of habitation for living beings. Good one. Okay. So see what eloquence has been clothed on these three truths, and note carefully the eloquent guidance. What hardness of heart can withstand without melting the heat of this eloquent guidance? What hardness of heart can withstand without melting the heat of this eloquent guidance? If you have understood this from the beginning to here, behold one flash of the all-wise Quran's miraculous guidance, and offer thanks to Almighty God. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. That's from Quran, chapter number 2, verse number 32. O God, grant us understanding of the mysteries of the Quran as you love and is pleasing to you. O God, grant us understanding of the mysteries of the Quran as you love and is pleasing to you. And grant us success in the service of it. Amen. Through your mercy, O most merciful of the merciful. O God, grant blessings and peace to the one to whom the all-wise Quran was revealed, and to all his family and companions. Amen. And that is the end of this. What was read today, the third point. A lot was read. I'm gonna maybe ask somebody who would wanna share out their immediate takeaway from what was read, something that was striking to you or something you're wondering about. So I'll mute myself, so feel free to share out whatever comes to your mind. Okay, looks like everybody's all frozen up, so we can go paragraph by paragraph, right? Let's see. Should we start up with the verse? There are some rocks from which, when they are cleft, water issues, right? So, yeah, just like, it's interesting. I mean, definitely the verses and the author is really drawing our attention to like matter that we may pass by on a regular basis, like rocks, we may see it around us, or pebbles, what's so on, right? Something to think about, like pondering over the existence, like how, first of all, how come they're in existence, and then I'm made to observe them. It's very interesting. And then you have different kinds of rocks, definitely. Some are soft, some hard. And so if you really think about it, what does it have to do with me as the individual or the human being, right? But definitely it must carry some kind of meaning. And I'm trying to still digest the text. So if anyone can help out here, that would be good. Go ahead, Brother Asim.
Okay, thank you. So throughout the text, I noticed a theme that is going on as you were talking about the human mind and the heart, how everything should be the events that we observe should be touching us, and that is constantly being questioned. How come your heart is not really touched upon, or does not get, or either go in awe, or is wondered, or is amazed, or even see that there is a source behind all this. And in the first paragraph, at least, that you read, it does say that these observations from the rocks and the rivers, everything is pretty much observed events, right? And then I think the second, from the verse that was read, and behold, there are some from which, when they are cleft, water issues. So now here, the author touches upon an interesting aspect about, he uses a technical term of staff of Moses. So that definitely means something, and I think we should talk about that a little bit. What does the staff of Moses represent? Right. So, because I feel that the author wants to point out that in the time of Moses was fighting mostly magic and whatever was seen. Mostly like the false ideas that were going through. So the staff of Moses, to me, at least from what my understanding is, it represents something that clears up the false ideas and brings in the truth. But of course, I mean, this is open to the ones who know more about it and who have read this. Probably some people have, read the staff of Moses as well. So I would love to hear their point. But to me, this represents that this puts a clarity into what the truth is and takes away all the false attributions, like for example, the things are coming into existence by themselves. So that's what I took away. And then it says, children of Israel, great rocks become soft and crumble before a single miracle of Moses. So the truth pretty much is so powerful that the biggest rock, if seen as an obstacle, when it learns the truth and reality, it comes to its state of, it crumbles down and sees what the reality of things is. This is first my initial thought, at least on this paragraph, but please, anybody else, let us know what this staff of Moses, what everybody understands from it.
Thank you for sharing, Asim. I see Brother Yusuf's hand up. Please go ahead, Brother Yusuf. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to say anything at any point, feel free to raise your hand. I say, Brother Sohail, go ahead, please.
So I mean, what I understood, kind of, in a sense, I get the sense from generally Nursia, I think his like emphasis in all of his writing is upon divine unity, and really how that manifests in the how this world is given existence. In this case, he is looking from the perspective of the heart to divine unity. How does it not submit to that, his absoluteness, and how he's able to work and take action over all things through his, power, will, wisdom, disposal, as he says. And then he goes from, as you read, the first being, there's some that fall down for awe of God. And, even the mountains themselves, are in sort of awe of his, absoluteness, that they crumble at his, manifestation of glory. I guess what that means for me is that, you know, am I, or is one's heart crumbling at the, you know, uh, really at the demonstration of his sort of divine power and wisdom uh, in how he creates things. Um, so I think that, I mean, that in a sense that looks to me like, do I take heed of the fact that, you know, even the rocks that appear very strong and unbreakable, they too are under a certain order and action. So, because he says in that paragraph, nor acting of their own accord, nor are the objects of chance, that within the disorder, through the wise disposals of one all wise and all powerful, they are within a wise order, not apparent to the superficial eye. So the question is, do I see, with my heart, how these things themselves, so as a sort of representation of my heart, they don't act on their own accord, but they, are situated, they are placed, they are transformed from moment to moment because one all wise and all powerful. So similarly, do I see my heart being transformed in that way? Because I see myself being acted upon. I see the manifestation of his qualities in myself. And do I sort of fall down in awe of that realization? And then I guess the other part of the verse then he quotes then is, behold, there are some from which when they are cleft water issues. And as Asim was asking about staff of Moses, to me, what I understand, at least from staff of Moses, are signs specifically. In a sense, do I see the signs within this world as being like the staff of Moses, in that they strike my heart, and my heart from striking it, tears, or in other words, rivers, gush forth or issue forth. Or in my case, do tears issue forth from the heart, seeing those signs in creation, seeing the manifestation of his glory and his wisdom in all things, because the rocks demonstrate that. They submit to it because they themselves, in being struck, issue water. So from them, even as something as hard as them, water can issue forth. So that's kind of what I generally took away. I know there's a lot more that you read, but to me was kind of tying in, both sort of like the unity of the Maker, and how my heart is in sort of kind of, I guess, a relationship with it, or a correspondence with it. Like, do I really see it manifest? Do I really see the demonstration of his divine unity in this creation? And how can it then my heart be indifferent to it? Does it, like the mountain, fall down in awe of him? Does it gush forth from the signs that are apparent in creation, like that of the staff of Moses? The staff could be, one, the signs in creation, or really the verses of the Quran themselves. They're in a sense like each staff of Moses, in that they, if I really understand their meaning, they sort of strike my heart. And from there, sort of, I guess the heart's acceptance of something is tears issuing forth. That's when the heart is, I guess, in a state of realization, or submission, is when tears issue. That's kind of really how when it's sort of, can't think of a word, but it's come to a sort of conclusion or realization of how the world is. So I'll stop there, but those are kind of my general thoughts.
So I guess this text, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is right middle of third point. And I guess we can talk about also the methodology that the author is following in here. For this verse, he first talked about how to read it here and now. So he talked about here and now, the stones, the creation of rocks, tell me something, which we discussed last week. Now he is starting to refer to the miracles of prophets which are being mentioned in the Quran, which can be like the point being pointed to in this verse. Because it's an interesting reading now. Because we can say that, yeah, we should read verses here and now. Last week we read it, we enjoyed it. Now he is also saying that, but this verse is also pointing to the miracles of Musa alayhi salam as it is, Moses, as it is described in the scripture. Not saying that it has nothing to do with that, but it's also saying that these verses are pointing to the miracles that are mentioned in the scripture. Now, so rereading the same verse, we already read this, we are studying it for the second time within the third point. Now he is saying that what can we take up from that aspect of verse now? Because now that this very much resembles the Moses hitting the rock with his staff and gushing forth 12 springs. So what does this imply? His reading into this is, actually let's first take it literal. The stones was very much responsive to the message or miracle of the messenger. And now, as of the verses asking the people of Israel, saying that you have seen several miracles of Moses. The stone saw only one of them, and it was responsive to this message, to this miracle, meaning that it was aware of the messengerhood of the messenger. Now the messenger is showing you several of the miracles or the signs, and you are being unresponsive. Now we can further read into that. So what does it mean that we or I being unresponsive to the miracles of Moses? Because I should be the addressee of this text when Mursi here says, how is it you are so unfair, you are obstinate in the face of all Moses' miracle and not weeping? So what are all Moses' miracles that I am seeing? So I should be now reading into it, which miracles of Moses are available for me. And then I guess I'll just tie this back to Asim's question. So what is stuff of Moses or the miracles of Moses that are still available for me today that Quran is inviting me to my heart to be softened in the face of miracles of Moses? This was mostly a question, not a comment, but that much for now.
All right, wonderful. Yes, I'm still pondering over what can be the staff of Moses pertaining to me, my current condition here and now. And I can only think of it as like everything, every event that one encounter is really a sign. It's an event, and I could even see it as a miracle, because if you're able to discern everything, like the act of creation or just creation in general, just pointing to something not from within this universe, then that's a miracle in itself, I would say. I mean, at least for me. And the staff of Moses, I wouldn't, I'm not sure, still thinking on that, but if anyone else anything on this to say, please go ahead.
This
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. This isn't related, but I just wanted to kind of throw this out here. Why is there so much on the paragraph on page 260, the top paragraph? Why is there so much emphasis, I feel, on fear of God? I mean, yes, when I look at mountains or gigantic structures or rocks being crushed, there is that sense of awe, but I mean, it's saying, how do you not tremble out of fear of God? Should I be trembling out of fear of God, or should I be feeling a sense of gratitude and security in the fact that the one who controls those mountains is the one that is sustaining and creating me? I'm just wondering why the emphasis is on the emotion of fear rather than something else. It makes it, I feel like that notion of fear really separates me from my creator, as in he's the terrifying, fearful, God, and I'm the lowly subject that's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, like, I'll be obedient. I don't know, I'm wondering why, if there's an emphasis on it, that's how I'm seeing it. If that should be paid attention to or not.
I mean, the way I understand it, fear of God, I think what the author is really trying to pinpoint here is like, trembling of the heart. It's just when one's spirit is in awe of realizing or feeling it, or like really when you do realize, or when you do become aware of how hard, like even like the mountains are made to stand tall, or anything, like even how is rain being sent, or even just like a simple small pebble, just like how can I explain its existence? Or really, I think the fear of God has to, I mean, to me at least, like really being like the trembling of the heart, or really being mesmerized and being in awe, where the spirit really gets connected to its source of existence. So that's how I would see it. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has something else to say. Go ahead, Brother Sohail.
So I guess the Arabic word is, I don't generally like how they translate. People generally translate khashya. I mean, that's, I guess, translated as fear, but it's in a way, to me, it's a sort of it's like a recognition in that, I wouldn't call it like being afraid, like, oh, I'm afraid of the dark or something like that, but I'm like have such heightened awareness of his his station, that he is the creator of the universe. He must be absolute. He's almost like all powerful, all wise, that these things that are happening in this world are not happening by chance, but by his will. Even the rocks, as they fall down before him, like it would be heedless to not take consideration of that, and to not want for oneself to fall down in that same sort of awe. I mean, the translator doesn't even use fear in their translation of the verse. They use awe, which I think is probably a better translation of that word. So I don't think it's necessarily like being like, oh, fearful, oh, he's going to do something to me, or if I don't do this, he's going to do that. But to take it personally, do I, am I really aware? Am I like really cognizant, and have I taken a hold of my senses, in that, this is the creator of the universe we're speaking about. As like Faria said, really every moment is a miracle, and every event within that moment is, in a sense, a miracle, because they don't happen on their own accord. How could I just be so I guess maybe lazy or foolish to like not even really consider each moment. If I really was aware, I would be in awe. I mean, it is the human response. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't think that's really a good translation of what the word in Arabic is, but I know some people use it that way.
Asim, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just to add on to what Sohail said, I agree also what he's saying. The word fear I don't think is appropriate here, because I think that through the whole text that Faria you were reading, I got the sense that the author is trying to raise our awareness and to be really mesmerized by giving the example of the rocks, and again, in general, through the rocks, whatever we are seeing in the universe. So, and I don't see how I can be in fear when right now I'm in the process of being amazed or being in awe, realizing what the source behind all this is. Right? If I say I'm fearful, that means I already have an understanding of who God is and I should be fearful. But see, this is the thing that this author is kind of good in terms of when he's building the case, he is bringing on the experiential side and saying, look at the events and observe them. And then he says, realize, look, what is going on? You see the rocks are following commands which are not from themselves, but they are creational commands. So again, I think it's more of being how you like looking at the universe, one sees that there is and a source behind it, like as you were saying, also just things that are following the creational commands. They don't seem to be working by themselves, so there must be something behind them, and all these meanings that we are deciphering or getting definitely refer to something. So that is what that being can be, whoever that source is. So that's how I understood the awe part. But I think Conley had raised his hand, so maybe, I don't know if Conley, you want to speak.
Just as far as as far as the fear goes, I think it's more like, I don't know how many of us have ever feared our father's anger or feared consequences of something. You get in a car, you're fearful of getting in. You're not fearful of getting in an accident, but you would be if you got close to it. You are relatively confident that everything is going to work. So you're not like driving down the highway scared to death, but you have this healthy repulsion from doing anything that could cause calamity. So I think that's what really what fear, like fear of getting on God's bad side. Because, if you get out of line, you're no longer in his protection. And I think that's kind of really closely related. People have wondered about the staff of Moses. Well, there's a couple of things about, the staff, of course, back in, as I understand it, Moses did spend some time herding. That's one way to see a staff as a tool of redirection, of discipline, of keeping a herd on track, going where you want them to go. Just as a symbol of God's direction. I think that's all the staff of Moses. Mainly, how that factors in here. So yeah, that's all I had to say.
Thank you for sharing, Brother Conley. That was an interesting comment. Brother Birkan, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Isn't it?
So I really want to.
Did you experience that?
Like when I hear Suhail, Asim, others, the way they think about the fear, To be honest, I don't agree with that. Like I was reading the text, the original one, and so on. Even in the Turkish, the author says korkmak, which is just fear, nothing else. Like, how dare you don't fear of God? Just like, this is the exact translation of the Turkish. And so yes, I guess one way of looking at the fear, by the way, like, please don't take it like when I say the translation of the Turkish, it doesn't mean that I'm telling you the deep meaning. This is just what I understand. And so, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I think it's not an issue of language. I guess it's more about what I think when I see the fear of God. But assume it is fear, and what I understand from it. That's the problem, I guess. And again, just personally speaking, to be honest, like taking the fear of God as just knowing of the source, of being aware of God, again, this is, to me, is too far-fetched. It's like trying to apply a meaning that we have from somewhere else, somewhere else, to here. As if, trying to read a colorful picture in just one color. And so I don't want to also lose the first question about the the staff of Moses. This is just, let's keep it in mind, and after this discussion maybe we should return that. But I guess this fear of God is, well, it's important. And the way I usually see, as I said now, is that we try to discard some aspect of humanity in the expense of, or to save, let's say, image or something, as if, we need to soften things. This is, again, my personal take. I'm not sure how many people would agree, but when I try to understand, like, what does it mean, like a fearing of God, or fear of God, or fear of something, like what I understand from that, I guess to these, like, we really need to study our feelings, or like what kind of state it puts me fearing, like how I feel when I fear, what I need when I fear, how I act when I fear. Because as we discuss, like every time, like we say it all the time, that all our feelings or our emotions or all our desires, wishes, whatever, everything we have has a purpose, has a meaning, has a place in big picture of creation reality. And I think things like fear, we usually study them. We don't care about them. We try to get rid of them. We try to give them a new meaning, which makes them almost same with reasoning or some other stuff, like finding the source or being aware. But for being aware, I already have another state, which is being aware. So what is the utility of fear? I guess this is the question we should ask. Like the fear, without changing its meaning.
So what state does it, like, it's an emotion and it's a human state, right? So like when we say, like, just to make sure that like we all have like the same understanding. So like what state or emotion does it really refer to when we say fear? Because the online participants, they came up with some definition of it, and you are coming up with a different definition of it. So like, for example, is it the same feeling that when like we feel in an event of something that's very dreadful, and we are terrified? Or is it a feeling that we see an awesome event, that we are mesmerized, but at the same time, at the awesomeness of the event, you have this kind of like submission to that power in a way. So like, I think it needs to be really clarified, because
Again,
I don't.
One way, but I like personally, I prefer to stick to traditional fear. Like I'm afraid of something.
You're terrified.
Yes,
and like,
terrified. Yes, because it is also part of me.
But then the question comes like, is the event in the creation, or is God Himself someone who we are supposed to be terrified with?
I guess this is the maybe like a part of the problem, that we have difficulty to understand the fear of God. We try to find the qualities or the image of God which will make us fear. But rather, I guess we should concentrate on ourselves, like how I feel, or what is my mindset when I fear. It doesn't matter, why I fear of God, or what kind of image I have of God which makes me fear. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not about the God, it's about my feeling, which I fear. And when I fear of something, for instance, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I fear of creatures, like not there, my state is pure submission. My state is just, finding a source that can protect me. If I was a child, for instance, I would cry for my mom. This is what we all did, I guess, right? But today, like at this age, when I wake up, which still happens, by the way, when I wake up in the middle of the night and when I'm afraid of something, I try to find a place that I can feel secure. And today, for instance, when I'm afraid of something, I start praying to God. And this prayer is so pure, it's so, how would you say, like real, sincere. Because I'm afraid that I'm aware that I don't have this power to security that I can provide for myself. So I need security, I need protection. This is what means to fearing for me. This is what makes me, what fear puts in me. That I try to find a place that I can feel secure. That I try to find a power that can protect me. So I guess this, I'm not telling that I already explained the fear of God, but I guess starting with fear itself and what it means to me, what is the fear of human, I guess this should be the first step we should take, rather than just equating fear to something else. Because without this feeling, the fear, being afraid of something, I'm not complete.
I think the way that I understand, that's why I asked Ayşenur, like if he experienced any kind of like, let's say in quotation mark, natural calamity like earthquake. And I experienced that 99 earthquake in Turkey. You are in sleep, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you wake up with this, like earth is moving like under you, like you wake up with this like an event that I don't know how you can really even describe that emotion. So like what I experienced within that event, like you first of all, you understand your complete impotence because there is nowhere to turn to. And at the same time, you like truly feel the I should say limitlessness of God's power. So like that, to me, that state showing two things. One, there is an awesome event that you are amazed by, but at the same time, that event is showing you the the level of power that creator can have. And that state to me is the khashya or fear of God. But that doesn't necessarily mean that God, like I am picturing a God in my mind that is constantly motivated or geared towards like punishing me and torturing me. If we are understanding this, the second one, like I am not sure if I agree with the fear.
Again,
but if we are referring to the example, I think that's something completely different that actually serves the purpose for you to understand your own impotence. So through understanding your impotence, you understand the greatness of his power or greatness of the creator.
I guess that's the reason I'm saying that we should, first start with the understanding the fear, my state feeling, because neither torture or what was the other one?
Punishment.
The punishment is part of the fear.
Can I say something? I'm sorry. It seems like from what I'm gathering, there's two aspects to it, right? Two maybe under the banner of what is the utility of fear. There seems to be two things that I extract from feeling fear, and I think these might have been mentioned in prior discussions or in some way. But one is a sense of loss. There's the sense of loss of feeling secure, right? Sense of loss of, if there's a mudslide and I'm right there, I suddenly feel fear because I'm suddenly feeling the loss feeling of losing my sense of security or well-being. If I'm in an argument with someone, and let's say it's my dad, and suddenly he uses an angry voice, there is fear of not experiencing his mercy or compassion. So again, a different form of loss. So one, there seems to be the associated feeling between fear and loss. And then this loss leads me to the association between fear and the feeling of a need for security, in protection, in compassion, in some sort of positive attribute, if you will. So, I mean, something else that comes to mind is someone else had also said this of how feeling fear towards my creator is actually a fear of feeling unconnected or disconnected from his attributes of again, mercy or compassion or beauty. I don't know, again, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but is there the notion of just plain old being terrified, in which, because I think you're right, I think that sometimes we do tend to soften or kind of try to ameliorate the actual description of fear by either ascribing another description of it or something else, but the feeling of just being purely terrified also exists, and yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I guess trying to understand fear of God, and at least initially what I understand is, as I feel myself impotent, powerless, and without any, let's say, the creative power in front of the God, observing his power, his creatorness,
Creatorship,
his wisdom, his the omnipotence, and seeing just the reverse, the inverse of what I have. I guess this is at least initially resembling, my state in the face of a monster. So it's not about the monster, that it doesn't have to be ugly. Some people even afraid of very cute dogs. Not because dogs are, ugly or like a monster or something, because they feel they feel important themselves in front of a cute dog. Or I'm afraid of my wife, not because she's, has this punishing tendency or torturing me, or because sometimes I feel impotent myself. And this impotence, it make me fear of my wife. So it's not about my wife, it's not about the qualities of my wife that, giving me this fear. It's about my state in front of what I see there. Also,
so yeah, interesting that we should all be questioning our feeling of being fearful, or what is that pointing to. So Brother Suhail has his hand up. Please go ahead. Not to cut off anybody, but
I just a couple quick things. One, I'm not saying anyone's saying this, but I personally cannot accept fear as being fear of punishment, because to me that, in a sense, speaking personally, that would breed hypocrisy. I do something because someone's going to punish me. It doesn't really mean that I actually, if there was no punishment, then would I really do it? So I don't accept fear as being that. I mean, going back to the verse, khashyatillahi wa mallahu bighafilin, like it's as if it's tying khashya, which is, we translated, I guess you could say, as awe or fear. So the awe or fear of God with, and God is not unaware of what you do. I guess you could maybe tie, as you guys said, fear to unawareness or heedlessness, in that, am I afraid to be heedless or to forget that I am being taken care of, that while I have no power, I am impotent, like as Osman gave that example, the creator of the universe is all powerful and he will take care of me. Like, am I afraid of losing that perspective? Because then, I can do nothing and yet everything happens to me. I have no power, but anything that I want or need of protection of, I can't fulfill that. So I guess maybe that would be, in a sense, one, you have an awe of his sort of majesty, his glory, his power, his will, his absoluteness. But in a sense, you are afraid of losing it. Either losing it because he wouldn't give it to you, or he wouldn't through his will maintain your existence and sustain you and fulfill your needs. And in another sense, personally, being fearful of heedlessness or ghafla, or being unaware that that is actually occurring. And if I don't have that realization, then I live in a sort of, I guess, personal hell if I didn't have that. And that's something you wouldn't want to lose or take lightly, is what you believe and how do you see the world. So those are just something I wanted to add to the conversation.
Thank you for sharing those. I also see Brother Conley's hand up. Please go ahead.
I thought that was interesting what Suhail was just saying. The thing is, I've struggled for years and years to understand, like, why. This is a hard concept. Okay. In trying to understand what God is, you can't, if you're asking, does God exist, it means there's a whole lot more to understand. Oh, you don't understand what God is, right? The question should be inapplicable. It shouldn't be an applicable question, right? I don't want to trip over myself. It's really hard. What I'm trying to say here is God is intrinsic to reality itself, right? In order not to have needed a creator himself, he must have been intrinsic to reality itself. In other words, anything that exists through him, he can't change his. There are scriptures in the Bible, which is where I come from, basically saying that he can't lie and he can't die, right? There are things that God tells us that he can't do, and chief among them, he can't lie, right? He can't change his own rules. Whatever he does, his rules have to be satisfied. And what that means is that if we go out of line with his rules, he can't save us because he can't break his own rules. In Christianity, I mean, I know, well, anyway, I won't bring that up. But every single one of his rules, his physical rules, his spiritual rules, his, it's just the way it is. It has to be satisfied. He is like the most exacting accountant that ever was. So in other words, as far as fear goes, the fear is of getting out of line with, or getting outside of the protective bubble that he's built for us. It's like, fear of jumping over a guardrail at the top of a high cliff. Because the laws don't care. They have to be satisfied, and they will exact your life. So it's not like you're scared when you're, running around on top of that cliff. You only get scared when you start getting ready to break rule, to do something that will necessitate something that's not in line with your well-being. So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
Go ahead, Brother Burkan.
Okay, so I think in part I will reiterate a point that has been made, but as this discussion on fear was taking place, I was thinking, then what is fear? Defining what fear is. And perhaps we can say there's like a transition from one sort of fear to another sort of fear, and a process and the experiences that we may go through. But I think perhaps in the traditional form of the word, fear is a feeling that I feel when I feel that I do not have control over a situation. I feel helpless. So I think maybe one surface meaning for this fear could be, for example, going to the car example. I can go inside the car, right? And I could put the key in and turn it and ignite the engine. But when I actually think about all of the processes that are going on, right? For example, just from the igniting the engine and it not like bursting into flames, to a truck that's passing by and not hitting me, to the building next to me not collapsing on me, to my body functioning properly as it should, right? Just from the moment of my sitting, just breathing regularly, from that moment, if I actually become aware of my reality, meaning that I become aware of all of the different things that are going right in that moment for me to experience it as normal. And by, I put this in quotation marks, normal encapsulating all of these very specific balanced acts taking place at that very moment so that I can have an uninterrupted and smooth transaction with my experience with the world. And then from there, turning on the engine and then, driving down the road, and then even more things could, potentially go wrong at every single second. And I don't have to be driving at the edge of a cliff or even going on a highway. I could just be parked. And these experiences, the first level of fear, I guess, is like fear of what can go wrong because I'm aware of my reality insofar as the laws of the universe goes on, as far as the laws of the universe are concerned. I think there was like a scientist, don't quote me on this, but like he figured out that the possibility of it raining like acid as opposed to H2O water is like 99% or something like that. It's like every single time it rains, it's supposed to be raining acid. I'm not actually sure if this is true, but it's just for making the point here. It might be true. I'm not sure. I haven't researched it myself. But because of this, like he was afraid to leave his house because of the possibility that, there's only 1% possibility that it's going to rain H2O, whereas every single time it's bound to rain acid. So I guess the first level of fear being that I'm aware that my reality could
completely morph and turn into another reality if these very delicate balances are not maintained. And then from there, I guess, so this is kind of like a terrified fear because I don't have control. And then from there, moving on to, I guess, maybe I'm skipping a couple of steps, but once, I confirm for myself that these intricate balances must be maintained, then I enter more like a state of fear and awe. Whereas from a state of being terrified, it could be a state of being in awe of the situation of like, wow, at this moment, even though I'm just sitting in my car, I'm sitting in my car perfectly well, I'm functioning well, everything around me is fine, I'm being sustained in such a perfect and delicate balance. And then from there, I think Brother Suhail was mentioning it, fear of losing this realization, fear of heedlessness, fear of forgetting. So other sorts of fear. But I think perhaps maybe the initial fear could be like the raw fear of just, fearing for your life. And that's meaning that maybe the core of it is feeling helpless in a situation because I don't have the power to control and maintain things in my life to go as smoothly as I want it to be. So I don't know. I mean, I think I'm reiterating all of the points that were being made, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Great. Thank you for sharing those. Brother Yusuf has his hand up. Go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
So I will just remind the things that we were discussing last week about, again, this same example. So the mount scrambling into pieces. And for that, we were talking about stone or this rock, large mass of rock scrambling into pieces when the Creator manifests on itself, on the mountain, meaning that it now becomes bits and pieces into manifestation of God's names. There's no more mountain. It all becomes manifestation of God's names. So if you were to imagine a consciousness of the mountain is not able to say I anymore. There is no I exist there. It all becomes pure manifestation of the Creator. This is what the crumbling of mountain represents. Now, seeing this in the mountain, take me, myself. If I am still able to say I, what is happening in here is I am challenging the Creator in terms of saying that I have a share in existence in and of myself. So as long as I'm able to say I am becoming like an opponent to the Creator. Now it is like as if it makes me imagine fight in the rulership or kingship. I am saying that, okay, you can be the creator of the rest of the existence, but here and now I am existing by myself. And this is now really something that I should be fearful of, because it is like I am saying that, okay, United States might have the best Air Force. Today a friend was making this joke, so I'm going to repeat his joke. He says that Mauritania is with only 2 planes that they have, I mean, reported by him. So now imagine saying that, no, we are strong, whatever. I mean, this sort of coming face to face reminds me right at the spot, or should remind me of fear. I mean, how dare you are claiming to have some sort of a power or qualities within yourself, although there's all the rest of the existence is from him, actually including you, but you are unaware of that. So you should be really, and if you are saying I, you should truly be fearful of him, because there's no I. I mean, I'm metaphorically using this word, saying that there is no self-existence of you that you can claim ownership on. If you are saying this, then if you are able to say I, you should truly freak out, to put it in this way.
Oh, I want to say something as well, if it's okay. So related to Yusuf, what Yusuf said, I guess it's a good example because, like, when you take it as he was saying, how dare you still think you have these qualities or whatever. I guess when you are in this state, the sentence, how is it you do not fear God make perfect sense, because it's obviously telling me that how dare you can't see that you are powerless. How dare you can't see that you are impotent. How dare you can't see that you don't have anything. When you, maybe comparison is not the right way, but when you consider God, when you dare to take the God as your opponent. So there's one thing, and I guess the fear here, again, I'm just highlighting, fear here is not about what God would do to you. It's about how you see yourself. So I really just think that, putting the emphasis on punishment or torture or being punished by God, I guess it wouldn't help us. Because the fear and punishment is not the same thing. You don't have to have the punishment to be fearful. And just because you deny the punishment part, you don't have to deny the fear part as well.
I think, at least in the cultural sense, whenever there is fear mentioned, there is Jahannam or like hell mentioned together with it, or there is a punishment mentioned together with it, or there is a torturing like mentioned together with it. I'm not saying that is the teaching of the Quran, but I'm just saying that is the emphasis on the traditional teaching of the religion. That's why, like, at least in my mind, whenever the fear is mentioned, those other things automatically comes into mind. So that's why, like, the first thing, like, it has to be, like, for this discussion, it must be clarified so we understand each other. And the other thing is, if we are convinced that, like, man's purpose on earth is to gain knowledge of God and then reach to the love of God and could, like, establish that kind of, like, loving relationship, or in other words, like, if man's purpose to really fully established belief in God, this fear of God, whatever it is, whatever, like, the feeling or the state that everyone refers to, I think it has to be, like, as far as I am concerned, it has to be understood within that context.
I guess this is really important, and like what I'm trying to say, just because there is such a tradition which equates the fear with the fire of the hell or punishment or torture, at least this is my personal feeling, that we don't have to get rid of the fear completely in our understanding and put love instead. Because, when we try to describe this fear of God, at least to me, it sounds like just love of God. Like, I don't want to lose him. I don't want to lose the connection with him. Like, to me, this is love of God. And as, for instance, the Yusuf's example, when you, quote unquote, challenge the creator, meaning claiming some authorship or ownership of something, a question like, oh, but don't you love God? To me, at least, it sounds little like missing something. But the question, don't you fear God, make more sense to me in this context again. So I guess I should mute some other people. Yeah.
I saw Brother Faraz's microphone unmuted. Go ahead, Brother Faraz.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm driving. I can't help my excitement. I'm jumping in out of line. Sorry. I have a sore throat also, so my voice is not there. I loved what Khadija Beza said. So nothing personal against anyone, or Khadija Beza, inshallah, will not become proud. But I really think what she said summarizes really everything else I understand the sensitivity about not transforming fear into love, but there is no way around it, because when you think deeply, Khadija Beza, what she said, fear is tied to, in Yusuf's and Birkan's language, how dare, and what how dare you are claiming for yourself. What does that mean? How do we experience this? We experience this that you are saying things have control. Things are by themselves under control or under my control. And like Khadija Beza said, this is, and we think about it and we realize it. When the verse says, fear God and He is aware, to me, that is saying the things that you give control to are not aware. Look at them. So the things that you have given power to keep things all right, they're not aware. So just like love, fear is that feeling. So either I will fear things or fear something else. So this realization that the things that I'm counting on are not aware. They cannot be counted on. This is terrifying. This is the fear. And this is exactly inseparable from the other side of this coin, which is that if I say there must be the one who is aware, because there is awareness going on, but the things are not aware. So who is aware? Who is in control? So when I found this one, now I fear. This one means I really fear everything is under his control. And it is the same as loving this one because everything is under his control. He is the one doing it. And you can't separate them. And to say love is not to soften anything. Love is terrifying. Love means you can lose this and you lose everything. I don't understand why people think love is something very soft and cushy. That's a very silly idea of love. Love means, literally, when you love something, what does it mean? It means it brings you what you need and you're terrified at losing this because it is the only thing that can bring what you need. So there is no way to parse these out. I think Khadija Beza's point is just perfect in this. What we dare to give control to things. And the punishment is in it. And the verse says, God is aware. So asks us, go to the things that you think are in control, are they aware? And then you have to decide. And so then you will decide who is aware and who is trusted and before whom you tremble that it is in his hand, everything is coming from him. So now all your anxiety about something happens, X, you are turned to God. Oh God, X happens. Oh God, X happens. And you love this one because all is in his hand. If you lose this one, you lose everything. So the punishment is in the giving of control to things that are unaware, and the love is in the one, finding the one to be feared. The one who is feared is loved. You can't separate the two. I don't understand. So anyway, just to go back, thank you, Khadija. I maybe messed up your point, but when I heard what you said, really made sense in my life experience. That's I need to know who is in control. Are the things aware that I give control to? Sorry for my comment.
Thank you for sharing your comment, Brother Faraz. Really, I'm questioning right now. Like every emotion definitely needs to be questioned, and it needs to be directed in the right direction. As in, even in any kind of feeling, like what is the source of this love that I'm experiencing, or what is the source of this fear? If I'm experiencing it, then it it's given to me, it must be given for a purpose, right? I have no control over even the feelings and the emotions. So it's a miracle, actually, if you think about it. Like it's an event. It's pointing to something, and really my responsibility as a human being is really I ought to do something about it, as in utilize it for the purpose it's given for. Right. Okay, I see Brother Yusuf's hand up. Go ahead, please.
This is Azam speaking. So I have a very quick comment. I'm just going to repeat myself. I'm not going to say anything different, actually. I think, like anything else, and also especially tying to Yusuf's point, this feeling is also should be understood in the main purpose of the teaching of the Quran. What is the main purpose of the Quran? What is the teaching, the main teaching of the Quran? So this very same feeling or the fear of God, that concept should be understood within that context, and also keeping in mind that the Quran itself repeats at the beginning of every surah, God being the most merciful and most compassionate, which actually we extensively discussed last week with the roots penetrating into the rocks and as a sign of mercy. So it should be understood within the main teaching of the Quran and within the context of what it really means for God being the most compassionate and most merciful. If He's as such, then what does it mean for me to have fear of God from someone that is the most merciful? Because, for example, the Quran doesn't repeat God being the, let's say, avenger as often as it repeats Him being the most merciful.
Interesting comments. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else who want to share out something? I don't know. I just saw a hand up earlier, but go ahead if you want to say something.
So, if there's no more comments, shall we go back to Staff of Moses? And if what do you think I have?
Yes, inshallah, let's do this. Staff of Moses.
So I'll just very quickly share Nursi's interpretation as far as I remember. So Staff of Moses, it was just like a stick. But the stick hitting the rock and taking water out of it, Nursi is saying that this is the prophetic approach. So for example, he contrasts it with philosophy. I mean, in philosophy, even including the Islamic philosophy, he says that the philosophy is trying to extract water or bring water from behind the mountains. So it digs a lot of excavation under the earth up until reaching a water source which is beyond the mountains. He says sometimes these tunnels that are digged by the philosophy gets blocked, and it's being very, very hard to, first of all, get to the other side of the mountain to find the water. But even if you once open or dig the tunnel and bring it, it time to time happens that, metaphorically speaking, tunnel collapses or it gets blocked. He says, in contrast, prophetic approach is, it has this staff, wherever it hits, it extracts water from there. So now applying metaphor to truth, prophetic approach looks at a camel, looks at a sea or a bird or whatever, and finds the wisdom or points that points to the Creator. So water in here signifying that, if you like, the water of life that gives you life, and life in my case is truth. So prophetic perspective, wherever it points to, shows the manifestation of the Creator right there. But he contrasts this with philosophy, saying that it needs to dig a further and further things. I mean, if you go with the Kalam, Islamic philosophy, you will find that this, let's say, the traditional proofs of contingency or حدوث الإمكان the traditional words, or in our modern day, we are trying to go all the way to Big Bang and say that since it happens, therefore whatever. So up until there, we are not able to find to the God. But once we prove it all the way down, we say that since God started everything, so he must be the source of things. So this is more like not the prophetic perspective. So in this case, the staff of Moses is sort of signifying the prophetic approach perspective, saying that wherever it hits, right there, it extracts water of truth.
Which means like showing the Tawhid in every single being or action in the universe. So that's what like the staff of Moses signifies.
Could you repeat what you said again?
Showing like the Tawhid or like God's like active creatorship or disposition or oneness in every single event or things or beings, as individually and as a whole of the creation or universe.
And then this question becomes meaningful, the way that Nursi is posing it in here. A stone was started gushing forth water just because seeing one miracle of Moses. Now you are seeing all miracles of Moses. Now taking it from my perspective, you are seeing several centuries of prophetic message, the prophetic message itself, and several people that studied it, and even, let's say, increased number of message that reaches you. Seeing them, how there you cannot really extract water. How can you, still you are thirsty, and you say that where is water, where is truth?
Okay, interesting. So the staff of Moses is really making one aware of the manifestation of divine oneness. If one was to make sense of it under the light of the Quranic teaching, that's what it represents. I think it can be like a criteria, right? Helping me discern that which is real from that which is just an illusion, I would say. Okay, that's what I took out from what was shared. I see a comment from Brother Sohail. Do you want to say something? Does anyone want to say something? Go ahead, Brother Birkon.
I was just thinking of how we can tie, or I wasn't thinking about it, but it just kind of clicked together in my mind, like the concept of fear that we've been talking about and the staff of Moses. So perhaps one way of thinking about it is the rocks themselves, when they're just rocks and there is no water gushing forth, could be the things in my life that I do not have any control over, the raw fear that I feel. And then once I become aware of the creational command, as it states in the text, in the sense that all of these things that which I do not have control over are must be under the control of one who is sustaining them at every moment. Then then the water gushes forth from the rock for me, and I realize that they become, metaphorically speaking, the staff of Moses in my life, because then I realize that, they're not just a rock it's a rock with water gushing forth from it. It's something that is not disconnected, and it's not something that has these qualities that just pertain to it in and of itself. It's, there must be a source that must be sustaining it right then and there.
I guess Ashina also wants to say something, so I'm not muting us since she's here as well.
Yeah, I think that summarized it. I was just thinking, from, I guess, this realization, utilizing one's own staff of Moses, if you will, like it really just changes like everything, like the entire game, if you will, like everything becomes meaningful, everything becomes a means of connecting it to an eternal one. Nothing is extra or missing. Everything is just waiting for me to extract the personalized message for myself. It's very, very nice, lovely too.
Go ahead, Brother Sohail.
I just wanted to emphasize. I mean, it may sound a bit, too, I guess, pedantic or too much semantic, but as Osman was saying, it's about Tawheed or divine unity. Divine oneness being something different, but the emphasis being divine unity or ahadiyya. So that's really the emphasis, as I understand it from the staff of Moses, in that the things themselves, it shows you through as a sign that things themselves are not, acting on their own accord, and that every moment is a sort of sign to be read from the creator of the universe. So in that sense, how can you not be aware, or how can you be heedless in front of all of that?
Interesting point. I didn't catch the difference between the unity of God and divine oneness, so now it makes sense. Where if you really ponder over the act of creation taking place, then since everything is working perfectly in a perfect order, like in harmony, so then it really makes manifest, I guess, the unity of God, I would say, in every action. Oh, Brother Faraz, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to everything beautiful said, which it's really, really amazing, making me jump in my seat as I'm driving. This is, I just finished teaching the semester, and the end of class students were discussing, and they were discussing. I didn't interfere. They were discussing. People say God has a plan for me, and I'm cutting short everything. And we wish we could be sure of that. We wish, it would be amazing if everything in my life was being done with a purpose, with a perfect wisdom, with a perfect, exactly how it should be. But alas, we, what a shame that there is no way to get there. How can I be sure of that? Religious people say this or this, but it would be great if this was true, that there is a plan. There is a plan at work, and it is a plan of perfect wisdom. And it was so palpable. Everyone agreed, and this is, just relates to this, that if you, what is the fruit of divine unity? What's the upshot? Okay, so I saw the one whose creation commands at work, in the tree, in the strawberry, in the sky, in the day and night, and now, I think that the point then is that I'm looking at this universe for this purpose, because I need confidence in my heart that everything in my personal life, in my being, is it really the case that it is in the awareness of a perfectly wise one, aware, it's coming from awareness, it is deliberate, it is planned, and it is done by one of perfect wisdom, absolute wisdom, and to live in the world in this way, it is just absolutely valuable. That I actually can come to the state of being, and I can feel I'm given this sense that I can actually feel secure, that I see the planner, I see the one aware, I see the one wise, and I'm sure of it. And so this then translates to my own being, my own life. This idea of quote unquote, God has a plan, everything has a purpose. These cliches that people wish were true, but there is no means to actually come to really experience this as true, except what the staff of Moses has been talking about. So,
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'll leave it to the Philly crew to finish up or conclude, right? Go ahead, please.
I guess we have like 6-7 minutes. So if anyone wants to share their concluding remarks, let's say 5 minutes, we can have the concluding remarks or questions. There's one thing when Faraz was speaking, maybe he already said that because I had difficult time to hear, but this, what reminded me is when we talk about divine unity, I guess there is also one aspect of it which looks to my life as true divine unity. All my desires or all my needs are also united. Like the wisdom I see, the justice I see, or love I see, or I need, they are also united, which gives me, I guess, a pleasure, which is to like think of, you see the instance of wisdom somewhere, and then instance of justice somewhere, and then instance of love or mercy somewhere, and you know that they all united. Everything's coming from the same source, meaning that you can have all of them. You don't have to like limit yourself with just wisdom, because this is the world we usually live in, or usually depicted in front of us by other ideologies, or let's say our own ideologies, that you can be, wise, but not that it's just at the same time just. You can have the love, but not, the compassion. But divine unity also, I guess, tells us that no, all of these are united, coming from the same source, which means your life can have all of them. Your desires, your needs can be satisfied at once. So you don't need to go for different paths or different sources for each of them. This is interesting. I don't know. I'm just thinking. This is the first time it occurred to me, but
yeah, I will just quickly add to this. I've been thinking about this a lot, but like Birkan said, you're saying divine unity. I would say belief in the one source then you can have all of them. But without unifying into one source, you can't have it. So, in fact, in this world, the only way to have all is in belief, through belief. That means you can find a source in which all of this unites, because in the world itself, nothing else unites. So, but that's a different discussion. So you can have it in belief. Definitely not without belief in the creation, but in the belief means you can get it, you can unify it through belief in that you found the one in whom these unify. And the way you got there is because you realize they don't unify any in the created things themselves. So, but yeah, only in belief you can unify. Yeah.
Great point, Jazakallah khair. So, yes, it's really interesting. divine unity, also look at your completeness, the completeness of the human. Only through, as Faz was saying, only through belief, this unification is there, and this unification gives you completeness.
Well, it was more of a question. Does anyone find any significance in there being 12 streams from 12 sources? That was my only question. But I guess we can answer that next week, maybe.
I guess, yes, we can discuss, and we should discuss these 12 sources. Inshallah, let's keep in mind, I usually tend to forget things. So inshallah, if somebody remind us, we can discuss next week. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة.